Pokemon Pocket's first mini set, the Mythical Island, is here, containing 68 mechanically unique cards. Today we're going to review all of the EX Pokemon in this new card pack, as well as all of the playable and sweet non-EX Pokemon that I think are most exciting and powerful to brew with. Let's go ahead and dive into it, shall we? Let's kick things off with the headliner, Mew EX, 130 HP with 2 attacks, the second of which could be metagame defining. Genome hacking takes just 3 colorless energy and lets you choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks and then use it. This is incredible against Charizard and Mewtwo EX because these are both powerful finishers that existing meta decks use that knock themselves out in one hit. Essentially, what this means is your opponent is never going to be able to switch up either of these cards if you have a Mew EX in your backline charged up and ready to go. This is essentially a splashable card that any deck in Pokemon Pocket will be able to play to give you powerful counterplay into 2 of the strongest meta decks in Pokemon Pocket's first set. Mew does more than just that, though, thanks to Budding Expeditioner, a new supporter in Mythical Island as well. This says put the Mew EX in your active spot into your hand. This essentially lets us use Mew EX as a wall to soak damage in our active Pokemon slot and then return it safely back to our hand to switch up whenever we're charging up the back line and start attacking without giving up any knockout points to your opponent or having to spend energy retreating. We've seen this type of wall setup with Weezing and Koga in our first set, and this setup with Budding Expeditioner and Mew EX means that you won't be having to play Dark Energy to get an attack in, and the Mew EX will serve a double purpose of not only being a setup Pokemon for you, but also making it so it can be a finisher against opposing finishers in other spots in the late game. I'll be interested to see how exactly things shake out, but I honestly wouldn't be surprised if 2 Mew EX and 2 Budding Expeditioner is a package you want to slot into a lot of decks in Pokemon Pocket moving forward. Up next is a Pidgeot EX, 170 HP Stage 2, whose 3 energy scattering cyclone attack does 80 damage plus 20 more for each Pokemon on your opponent's bench. This means it can do up to 140 damage for just 3 energy. This card seems reasonably powerful on its own, and when you consider the context of the format, i.e. you get to play this in the same deck as regular Pidgeot, I think we've got something that's a real contender. Regular Pidgeot is a card that's seen some fringe play in Pocket's first set due to its powerful Pokemon ability giving you a Sabrina effect every single turn and having the flexibility to either evolve into that utility with a lower damage attack on a single knockout point body, or instead evolve into this EX Pokemon that offers a powerful finisher. I think will be a lot of flexibility that decks are interested in playing. My initial impression is that I'm interested in testing 2 regular Pidgeots and then 1 EX. I'll want that finisher a little bit less frequently, I would wager, but I honestly wouldn't be surprised if playing 2 of each ends up being well. Another card that I think is worth calling out in tandem with Pidgeot EX here is the new item Pokemon Flute. This takes a basic Pokemon from your opponent's discard pile and puts it onto their bench. This can be excellent if you've already knocked out something and need to fish up a little bit of extra damage for your Pidgeot EX to claim another victim. Up next, we have an Aerodactyl EX, 140 HP Stage 1 that evolves from Old Amber, just like the base Aerodactyl did in the first expansion. Land Crush does 80 damage for a fighting and a colorless, and then Primeval Law is a Pokemon ability that stops your opponent from evolving their active Pokemon. Something that's noteworthy about this is that Primeval Law does not require Aerodactyl EX to be your active, so even while it's on your bench, it's going to stop your opponent from evolving whatever is in their active spot. I will say overall, I'm skeptical that this Pokemon ability is going to be impactful in the current metagame that we have. Both of the decks that really lean on evolution Pokemon, i.e. Charizard and Mewtwo, want to evolve that Gardevoir or Charizard while they're on the bench, and they lead with a basic Pokemon that doesn't really care about Aerodactyl's ability. That being said, if the metagame were to shift in a more evolution-centric manner, something like Machamp EX, for example, that wants to be active while evolving, this could definitely be a potent tech tool, especially considering the fact that Land Crush dealing 80 for just 2 energy is a pretty on-rate attack for an EX Pokemon Stage 1. Next up, we have Celab EX, 130 HP basic Pokemon whose powerful Bloom lets you flip a coin for every energy attached to it, dealing 50 damage for each heads that you land. Before we dive into my thoughts on this one, I'd like to also share the text on Superior, a new 3-diamond card on the Mythical Island. This is a 110 HP Stage 2, who has a 4 energy, deal 70, whose Pokemon ability is noteworthy here. It makes every grass energy attached to your grass Pokemon provide 2 instead of just 1. This effect works with Celab EX, meaning every single turn you can stack another energy on the Celab and get to flip 2 more coins, adding an average of 50 damage per turn instead of adding an average of 25. I could definitely see a world where these 2 Pokemon lines are paired with something like, say, Exeggutor EX, a quick character that only needs a single energy investment to start, allowing you to put a ton of energy on Celab and have it be this incredibly powerful finisher that flips a giant pile of coins for a giant pile of damage. Superior in and of itself is also pretty reasonable as well if you're evolving it while going first. Its Solar Beam is effectively a 2 energy, deal 70, which is solidly on rate if you get this stage 2 out fairly quickly. Our 5th and final new EX on the Mythical Island is Gyarados EX, 180 HP with a 4 energy rampaging whirlpool attack that deals 140 damage and then discards a random energy from among all the Pokemon on the board, yours and your opponent's. I'm not sure if the kind of text underneath the damage on the stack is going to be super relevant fairly often. I guess it'll take an energy off itself on occasion, but a lot of the time 140 is going to be clearing out whatever you're attacking into. That being said, 4 energy is not a small investment. You're either going to need to be flipping heads on a Misty to get this online fairly quickly, or perhaps you could utilize it as a finisher thanks to another new water Pokemon coming on the Mythical Island, Vaporeon. Our new Vaporeon is a 120 HP Stage 1 that attacks for 60 for 3, but the real potency here is in its Pokemon ability, which every single turn it allows you to move any number of water energy from your bench Pokemon up to your active. Effectively, what this allows you to do is lead on something like a Starmie EX that has a free retreat cost, get some pop shots in, and then before your Starmie gets knocked out, you retreat it to your bench for free, put up something like this Gyarados as a different attacker, and move that energy off of Starmie and onto the Gyarados. EX Starmie won't be the only free retreater that works really well with this new Vaporeon. Lumineon is a new Stage 1 on the Mythical Island, 80 HP with a 2 energy attack that does 50 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. This, in tandem with Starmie EX, is going to be a really potent 1-2 punch. There are a number of Pokemon that can survive a 90 HP hit and then retreat to safety, and Lumineon is going to switch right in and clean these out. If you get fortunate and have a Vaporeon in the mix with the other 2 Stage 1 as well, you can even just shuffle the energies back and forth between Starmie and Lumineon, meaning you need no further setup once you have all these pieces online. Next up is Blue, a new supporter card. This is during your opponent's next turn, all of your Pokemon take 10 less damage from attacks of your opponent. I think this card is going to be crucial in decks that are looking to play 90 HP Pokemon. One of my personal favorites is Jolteon, that has felt this close to being playable during Pocket's first set, and I think with Blue giving you the ability to survive a hit from a Starmie EX or a fully charged up EX Pikachu is the push a lot of these 90 HP Pokemon could need to put them on the map. A big question you'll have to ask yourself in deck building moving forward is, can my characters survive a single hit? I.e., do I want to play Potion to heal them back 20, or do I need something like Blue to proactively blunt a blow that would otherwise be knocking them out in one shot? Next up is Leaf, a new supporter who reduces the retreat cost of your active Pokemon by 2. I will wager there'll be a number of decks that want to play this in addition to X-Speed, but I'd also wager there's some that want to play her just instead of it. One of the key things that X-Speed will still enable you to do that Leaf misses is being able to Professor's Research into X-Speed on the first turn of the game, and then utilize that to swap around or retreat cost 1 Pokemon that a lot of people like to do to get something like a Kangaskhan, for example, up into that active slot right away. Up next is a new dragon Pokemon, Druddigon, a 100 HP basic who has a 2-color Dragon Claw attack that deals 90 for 3, but that's not the really appealing part of this. Our Pokemon ability here, Rough Skin, says if this is in your active spot and takes damage from an attack, it does 20 damage back to the active Pokemon. This, I think, could potentially be a Kangaskhan-esque lead Pokemon that soaks reasonable amounts of damage. It survives a hit from 90 for a turn, while also dealing some damage back to the opposing Pokemon without requiring any energy investment on your part. It's also notable that unlike Kangaskhan, Druddigon here retreats for just 2, so it can get out of the way a little bit easier. I also think any deck that could manage to actually attack with this on occasion as well, making both fire and water energy, could be potentially really potent. I recently highlighted a Flareon Greninja deck on the channel that I am super excited to play this one in, past his potential splash ability as a more generic lead. Speaking of generic leads, up next we have a new Tauros, 100 HP basic with a 3 colorless energy attack, Fighting Tackle. It only does a base 40, but it does an additional 80 if the opponent's Pokemon is an EX. This notably clears EX Pikachu in a single go, while similar to Druddigon, being a reasonable lead Pokemon that survives a hit from 90 and retreats for just 2 energy. Essentially, if you want a slightly less aggressive lead that can also flex into being a finisher in particular matchups in the metagame, Tauros could fill that spot. Next up is DDN, possibly one of the most toxic cards in the set. 60 HP with a 10 damage 1 energy attack that flips a coin to potentially paralyze. I would be pretty surprised if this doesn't end up being a staple in the EX Pikachu decks, because it'd be useful in buying a lot of time when you need it to get your full start set up. Marshadow is an 80 HP basic whose revenge attack does 40 damage for just 2 energy and does an additional 60 if one of your Pokemon was knocked out on the previous turn. The immediate thing that jumps out to mind when looking at this card is that with EX Pikachu's weakness to fighting, Marshadow's revenge can one-shot it on the backswing after Pikachu knocks out any of your Pokemon. Marshadow also has a fairly low retreat cost, so you can put it up, get a knockout with your revenge, and then X-speed it back to your bench, putting else something up to the active, so that way when they eventually knock out that second Pokemon, Marshadow can hop in yet again and deal another 100 to 120. We got a brand new Exeggutor, 50 HP with a colorless energy attack, Growth Spurt, that takes a grass energy from your energy zone and attaches it to this Pokemon. This ability is noteworthy because you can grab a grass energy even if there's not grass energy in your energy zone to start. So this means this Exeggutor could be splashable in a 2-color deck with just 1 type of energy in the zone. It also means in a 2-color deck that wants to play grass energy, you can just use this to smooth out some of that resource variance that you experience. While the base Exeggutors that we have from Genetic Apex only need a single grass to attack, they often like having an extra energy on them to eventually be able to retreat for 3 before they get knocked out. That being said, there's also a new Exeggutor in this set that has a 4 energy psychic attack that deals 80 plus 20 more for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. I think it's noteworthy that this attack requires 3 colorless energy, which means you could be playing this Exeggutor with Exeggutor in a deck without any grass energy in its energy zone and only need to use the Exeggutor once to be attacking with this Exeggutor. I'm a little skeptical that this big finisher Exeggutor is something that you're going to necessarily be interested in doing, but I could also see a world where you're playing 2 EX Exeggutors as your primary thing to be attacking with the Exeggutor, and you just play 1 copy of this baby Exeggutor as a bigger finisher in the games where it plays out as something that you need. Flexibility is key, even if the power level is a little bit low potentially on this card overall. Next up, we have the Scolipede Stage 2 line. Starting from the top, we have a 140 HP attacker that for 2 energy has Venoshock, which does 70 plus 50 more if the opponent's active is poison. This is a stellar follow-up from the Stage 1 Whirlipede, which has a 1 dark energy attack, dealing 20 plus poisoning the opponent's active Pokemon on a 90 HP poke. This curve, when going first, is quite elegant. You can evolve into Whirlipede on the second turn, attach your energy, and attack for 20. You then deal 10 on the back and forth for a total of 40. You evolve into Scolipede and get your second energy on it, and then crack your opponent for 120, meaning you deal a total of 170 damage over those first few turns of the game if you hit this stage 2 on curve. It's also noteworthy that Scolipede only has a retreat cost of 2, meaning if you use it in tandem with something like Leaf, you could even retreat it back to your bench after you knock your opponent's Pokemon out with it to put something else up that can then poison, so your Scolipede can be a finisher yet again later on. Next up, we have both a new Coughing and Wheezing. Coughing is a 70 HP basic still, whose division attack pulls a second Coughing out of your deck onto your bench. The new Wheezing is 110 HP again and has a 2 energy smokescreen attack that deals 50 and makes your opponent flip a coin to see if their attack will work. It's noteworthy that you can only have 2 copies of each card with a specific name in your deck at any given point, meaning you can only play 2 Coughings total and 2 Wheezings total, but it would be possible for you to play one of each. Something that's noteworthy about this new Wheezing is that a 2 energy attack on a stage 1 means this Wheezing is more favorable when going second, i.e. the first turn you have to evolve it, you'll be attaching your second energy, while the previous Wheezing prefers to be going first because you evolve it when you attach that 1 energy and get to tackle with it right away. This new Wheezing in tandem with Koga that can still bounce it back to your hand, I think has potential to be an incredibly frustrating stall card, since Smokescreen is going to blank your opponent's attacks half the time, and when their attacks actually do manage to get through and land, you're going to be able to Koga this back to your hand and reset it with full health again. Next up, we have a new Ponyta and Rapidash. Ponyta, while not strictly better, I think is better a lot of the time, dealing a base 10 and then having a coin flip to deal 30 more, averages 25 damage for 1 energy, whereas regular Ponyta only does a guaranteed 20. New Rapidash is also a coin flip card, dealing a base 40, but then flipping a coin to deal 60 more. The breakpoint on this Rapidash is particularly interesting when you factor in that it still works with the Blaine supporter, meaning on a heads flip, you get to deal 130 damage with a 2 energy attack. Similar to the dynamic we saw with the new Wheezing a moment ago, this Rapidash having a 2 energy attack means it's better when going second. Meanwhile, the base Rapidash from Genetic Apex is better when going first with its 1 energy attack. I wouldn't be surprised if it's potentially optimal to play a split of these two to try and get one for each situation to come up as often as you possibly can. Next up, we have a new Graveler and Golem. I think new Graveler is much better than the previous one. This one only needs 2 energy to attack with its lunge out, and new Golem is not strictly better, but kind of just different. Its attack is still 4 energy, but it only deals 120, and instead of hurting itself, it actually protects itself from its opponent's attack the following turn, taking 30 less. I think the Graveler in particular is noteworthy here because it means Golem gets to curve out organically when you lead on a Geodude. You can play the Genetic Apex Geodude out, attack for 20 with 1 energy when going second. You then evolve into Graveler on your second turn and put a second energy on it and attack for 40. And then on your third turn, you can evolve into either Golem, attach a 3rd energy from your energy zone, and then use Brock to attach a 4th and just get to attack 1, 2, 3 right on up the way. Which of the 2 Golems we have ends up being better is probably a bit of a metagame consideration depending on which Pokemon you expect to be playing into, but I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it's generally correct to just play one of each to give yourself flexibility in different situations depending on where you find yourself mid-game. Finally, we close out with some new Pokemon on the Mythical Island. Galvantula is an 80 HP Stage 1, whose Electro Web attack deals 70 for 2 energy and stops the opposing Pokemon from retreating the next turn. First noteworthy thing that jumps out to me is that this electric typing with this damage means that you get to knock out opposing EX legendary birds, Moltres, Articuno, and Zapdos in just 2 goes, even through a potion thanks to weakness, and the actual effect on Electro up here is quite powerful. I think Arbok is one of the more potent stage 1s in the game that we got in the first set, and this card has a similar attack. The obvious trade-off here is that this one comes with a little bit less HP, so it unfortunately will not survive 90 HP attacks from things like Starmie or Pikachu EX. Next up is Sigil, an 80 HP Psychic Pokemon who attacks for 10 for 1 Psychic Energy and draws a card. We've seen Mewtwo EX decks in some of the tournament finishes playing Meowth as a way to draw additional cards, and I think anyone doing that will happily replace it with this since it has more HP to start. Finally, we close on Behem, a 90 HP stage 1 whose Mind Jack does 10 damage plus 20 more for each Pokemon on your opponent's bench. The general baseline for stage 1 energy attacks is dealing 40 for 1, meaning if your opponent has 2 or more bench Pokemon, this attack is dealing an incredibly efficient amount of damage for a low energy cost. That being said, they're also going to have some agency to play around this, so they could make your potential attacker a little bit worse by holding cards back in their hand until they need to play them out later in the game. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of my Mythical Island Best Cards set review. I would love feedback on this video format in the comments down below, since Pokemon Pocket sets are a fairly new thing, and this type of content can definitely evolve and improve in the future. Most notably, I would love feedback on, do you like me just covering the cards they think are potentially good, or do you think it's worthwhile to potentially show every card in the expansion and simply be like, cards bad for the cards that are obviously just pack filler? Not showing every card also gives me the opportunity to say, you should let me know which card you think I missed on and didn't show, and explain to me in the comments down below why that card should be something I should consider playing. If you enjoyed my breakdown today, make sure you smash the like button on the video. If you happen to be new here, consider subscribing to the channel. If you're not familiar with me, welcome. My name is Jeff Hoagland. I have decades worth of TCG experience playing competitively, building tons of off-meta decks and finding success with them and top tournament environments. I'm making content here on the internet focused around card and strategy games for the better part of a decade, and this channel is dedicated to all things Pokemon Pocket, where you'll find breakdowns like this, deck roundups, and highlights 7 days a week. I'd love to see you back again in the future. May your next Mythical Island pack be an excellent one. Thanks for watching.